yesterday what I would consider a generational level crash out in the Oval Office in front of the press with everybody there. Everybody watched it. Crazy crash out. Crazy. Yes, this is a global crash out. Man. And now we have the fallout. Here we go. In front of the entire world. Yep, everybody got to watch this happen.
And my source tonight is the Secretary of State who is in that room today, Marco Rubio. Thank you so much, Secretary Rubio, for being here. We just heard from President Zelensky. He said he does not think that he owes President Trump an apology for what happened inside the Oval Office today. Do you feel otherwise?
I do, because you guys don't see. You guys only saw the end. You saw what happened today. You don't see all the things that led up to this. Nope. So let me explain. The president's been very clear. He campaigned on this. He thinks this war should have never started. He believes, and I agree, that had he been president, it never would have happened. Now here we are. He's trying to bring an end to this conflict. We've explained very clearly what our plan is here, which is we want to get the Russians to a negotiating table. We want to explore whether peace is possible. They understand this. They also understand that this agreement that was supposed to be signed today was supposed to be an agreement that binds America economically to Ukraine, which to me, as I've explained, and I think the president alluded to today, is a security guarantee in its own way, because we're involved. It's now us. It's our interests. That was all explained. That was all understood. And nonetheless, for the last 10 days, in every engagement we've had with the Ukrainians, there's been complications in getting that point across, including the public statements that President Zelensky has made.
See, this is what I thought was happening, is that, like, there's apparently some breakdown in communication where, like, things that are happening privately are clearly not what's happening publicly. That's what's going on. Marco said Zelensky was saying different things in meetings versus to the public. Yeah, no, I saw that. Because, like, that's the only way that I could explain it. Because, like, to see JD and Trump pop off like that out of nowhere, I was like, okay, there's got to be a reason for this, right? I mean, did they really just randomly get mad like that? Like, I don't know, maybe, right? Maybe. But still, I'd try to look for another reason at least, right? Because it just doesn't make sense to me.
But they insisted on coming to D.C. This agreement could have been signed 5 days ago, but they insisted on coming to Washington, and there was and should have been a very clear understanding. Don't come here and create a such scenario where you're going to start lecturing us about how diplomacy isn't going to work. President Zelensky took it in that direction, and it ended in a predictable outcome as a result. It's unfortunate. That wasn't supposed to be this way, but that's the path he chose, and I think, frankly, sends his country backwards in regards to achieving peace, which is what President Trump wants at the end of the day, is for this war to end. He's been as consistent as anyone can be about what his objective is here.
But what specifically do you want to see President Zelensky apologize for?
Well, apologize for turning this thing into the fiasco for him that it became. There was no need for him to go in there and become antagonistic. Look, this thing went off the rails. You were there, I believe.
To be fair, Zelensky saying that Putin is a murderer and a war criminal, it does put the United States in a bad position. And for him to say that he wants the United States to be on Ukraine's side, it does damage the ability for, like, them to negotiate. It does. It's factual. It is. It's factual. And that's the problem, though, right? Is that, like, I think that we all agree Putin's a piece of shit, right? For sure. But saying it during the negotiation at the Oval Office is going to move you farther away from getting that negotiation done. Both of these things, I'm pretty sure, are true. That's how I see it. That's where I'm at. Maybe I'm crazy.
It went off the rails when he said, let me ask you a question to the vice president. What kind of diplomacy are you talking about? Well, this is a serious thing. I mean, thousands of people have been killed, thousands. And he talks about all these horrible things that have happened to prisoners of war and children, all true, all bad. This is what we're dealing with here. It needs to come to an end. We are trying to bring it to an end. The way you bring it to an end is you get Russia to the table to talk. And he understands that.
I wish that, like, I don't know if in this interview he's going to address this or not, but how the fuck do you think that Russia is going to come to the table to end this when they've broken a number of other deals in the past? Like, I mean, because that's the main concern. Like, because he's not even addressing, like, why did Zelensky say that? Like, yes, Zelensky said that, but why did he say that? What, like, address the reason why.
Attacking Putin, no matter how anyone may feel about him personally, forcing the president into a position where you're trying to goad him into attacking Putin, calling him names, maximalist demands about Russia.
Which, to be fair, I think Marco Rubio makes a good point here, is that trying to get Trump to make negative comments about Putin publicly in front of everybody is something that is kind of manipulative. It is. And the thing is that he can do that because the reality is, like, again, it's true, but at the same time, it could make him look bad.
To pay for the
But Trump
reconstruction.
can publicly insult Zelensky? I'm trying to just be as, again, you're bringing in extra stuff. I didn't agree with Trump saying that about Zelensky either. I thought that was stupid for him to say that. I know that a lot of people, whenever I provide commentary or I talk about any of these topics, people think that I'm on one side. I'm not. I'm not. Tomorrow, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do the same thing that I did today. My life will be relatively unchanged from any of these things. I'm looking at them as fairly as I possibly can. And if you guys think there's something I'm missing, that's fine. But don't ever convince yourself or delude yourself into me thinking this is a fucking play for points game. That's not how I look at it. And that's not how you should look at it either.
All the sorts of things that you talk about in a negotiation. Well, when you start talking about that aggressively, and the president's a deal maker, he's made deals his entire life, you're not going to get people to the table. And so you start to perceive that maybe Zelensky doesn't want a peace deal. He says he does, but maybe he doesn't. And that active, open undermining of efforts to bring about...
I think that Marco Rubio is completely... I really hope that she asks, like, why is it a peace deal when they've broken peace deals in the past? That's the problem. The issue is that it's the definition of peace deal. He doesn't think that it is.
Peace is deeply frustrating for everyone who's been involved
Hopefully
in
he talks about
communications
it,
with
though.
them leading up
I'll
to
stop
today.
pausing and bringing
I
up
think
that
we
point.
should
Can I ask you-
apologize for wasting our time for a meeting that was going to end the way it did.
Yeah.
You yourself have said previously that Putin cannot be trusted in negotiations. That was the point that President Zelensky...
Smart to bring that up. It was really smart to bring that up.
he was ultimately making during that conversation, is that there cannot be an agreement without security guarantees, because he was talking about all the ceasefire agreements before, or agreements that Putin has just blown past. I mean, do you still feel that way, that Putin cannot be trusted in these negotiations?
Well, I was there yesterday when the president said in front of the media that our approach is going to be trust but verify. President Trump's made deals his entire life. He's not going to get suckered into some deal that's not a real deal.
Let's assume that's true. Ukraine in 4 years will then have this problem after Trump is gone. That's the issue. The issue is that this deal being contingent on Trump is building a castle on sand, because the U.S. presidents rotate all of the time. And again, like, I don't think that they want to take a 4-year armistice effectively for this, or ceasefire. And then immediately after the new person comes in, maybe the new person will be even more tough than Trump is. Or maybe it'll be another Biden. We don't know yet.
Understand this. We understand it on our end for certain. And so the goal here is to get to a place.
Third term?
We have to explore whether peace is possible. I've said this repeatedly. I don't know. I
Yes,
think it
true.
is, based
8
on
years.
what they've said so far. But we have to explore that. How else is this war going to end? I ask people, what is the European plan to end this war? I can tell you what one foreign minister told me, and
Somebody's saying I'm flip-flopping? No. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the advantages and the nuances of both perspectives. That's what I'm doing. And I think that both perspectives have weight and value. My perspective with this, just by the way, this is like my actual opinion. I think Putin will have to get something out of this deal. I don't think Putin should get something out of this deal. I think it's a pick your poison type situation. And unfortunately, we're in a place where in order to cause this problem to stop happening, we have to give something to a person that shouldn't get something. That's what my actual perspective is. That's what I think is going to happen. So just in case anybody is getting it twisted, that's what I actually think.
I'm not going to say who it was, but I can tell you what one of them told me, and that is that the war goes on for another year. And at that point, Russia will feel so weakened that they'll beg for a peace. That's another year of killing, another year of dying, another year of destruction. And by the way, not a very realistic plan in my point of view. So if there's a chance of peace, even if it's a 1% chance, that needs to be explored. And that's what President Trump is trying to do here.
President Trump said just when he was leaving the White House after that meeting that he doesn't think President Zelensky wants peace. But isn't that why
if it's failed 25 times, then it would be a 4% chance. That would make sense because that's Zelensky's approval rating, right? Ironic math, isn't it?
Ukrainian leader was in the Oval Office for that meeting today?
Well, he was in the Oval Office to sign a minerals rights deal. That's what he was in the Oval Office to sign today. But again, when you have comments that deliberately appear to be after having discussed this repeatedly, deliberately appear to be geared towards making the argument that peace is not possible. Again, he turns to the vice president. What kind of diplomacy are you talking about? Almost as if to say, these people, you can't deal with them. You can't have any negotiations with Putin because he can't be trusted, and you're just wasting your time on negotiations. Well, he's basically undermining everything the president has told him he's trying to do. Look, there's no need for that. You start to suspect, does he really want an end to this war? Does he just think that, we have to do whatever he says and give him anything he wants without any end game? That was the Biden strategy. We were funding a stalemate. We were funding a meat grinder. And unfortunately, for the Ukrainians, the Russians have more meat to grind, and they don't care about human life. We've seen it, human waves, the North Koreans, etc. And so this is a very complex thing. It's very delicate. It's very costly. It's very bloody. It needs to be brought to an end, but it isn't going to be brought to an end with public pronouncements and maximalist demands in the public, but in real diplomacy. The vice president was right.
When you say they don't care about life, are you talking about the Russians or the Ukrainians?
Well, the Russians, they're conscripting by the hundreds of thousands. They brought in North Korean troops that were slaughtered in Kursk, and they keep going because they got more people. That's the other fact. Look, and it's, again, we go back to the same point. I'm not going to fall into this trap of the who's bad and who's evil. People can make those conclusions. People have seen how this narrative is played out and where we are today.
Yeah, and the reason why he's not going to draw that conclusion is because there is no conclusion to draw. It's obvious who's in the wrong here. Everybody knows who's in the wrong.
Today and how this all started and so forth. The point now is it has to end. And the way it ends is you get people to a negotiating table. And the president, who's the ultimate deal maker, knows you don't get people to a negotiating table when you're calling them names and you're accusing them of things.
He's completely fucking right. He is. He's absolutely right about this.
Because at the end of the day, this is not a political campaign, okay? This is high-stakes international diplomacy and an effort to bring about an end to a very, very dangerous war.
He's right.
But you yourself, sir, have said before that you believe Putin is a war criminal, that is a widely accepted fact. You've called him a butcher. And you've said that as a Secretary of State, you do believe it's important for someone with such global influence as you have to speak with that kind of moral clarity.
Yeah, and at this moment, as Secretary of State, my job working for the president is to deliver peace, to end this conflict and end this war. Ultimately, that is the job of the State Department. The State Department doesn't fight wars, it ends them. It tries to end them.
I think that's a good answer. Honestly, that's a great answer that Rubio is saying. It's it's not his place to put his... it's not his place to put his moral judgment on this. He's executing the will of the president. I really think that Marco Rubio has been doing a really great job. Every interview I've seen with him, I think he's really been impressive. What do you guys think? I might not agree with him about everything, but I'm very... little Marco's growing up. It's great to see, man, isn't it? Yeah, big Marco. Exactly.
And that's usually, by the way, celebrated.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout history, I've watched presidents that bring about an end to wars and conflicts, and people celebrate that. They applaud it. I think we should be very proud and happy that we have a president whose prime objective is not to get into wars, but to prevent wars and to get out of wars. That is a very noble, laudable goal. Everyone should be applauding it, and he should be given the space to do that, not undermined by demands that he call Putin names or that we say things that impede the ability to conduct real diplomacy, as the vice president said today.
Yeah, it's not pragmatic to call Putin a war criminal in the middle of negotiating with Putin. It's just not pragmatic. Even if it's true.
To follow up on what you just said a moment ago, are you saying that you have doubts that President Zelensky wants this war to come to an end?
What I have doubts about is whether he's willing to say and do the things that we need in order to get a negotiation. Again, you guys, this has been going on for 10 days. And, you know, to see things in the press saying we're not coordinating with the Ukrainians, that's absolutely false. Over the last 10 days, the Ukrainians have met with the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of State, the Vice President of the United States.
Somebody says it pragmatic to call Zelensky a dictator. I personally don't think so. I wish Trump didn't say that. I thought it was stupid for him to have said that. And I criticized that when it happened. Is that fair? I'm not like, yeah, nope, never said that. Yeah, I never said that.
Had a phone call with President Trump, and he was in the Oval Office today. I've talked to the foreign minister of Ukraine 3 times in the last 10 days. The argument that we're not engaging, but yet you keep reading these press accounts about, oh, well, they're leaving us out. We're not involved. We're not engaged. None of these things are true, and it continues. So all that led up to today in a deep sense of frustration. And my hope is that this all can be reset.
Yeah, I think that this was a tip of the iceberg. And I think that a lot of private communications, it's very obvious. The private communications were probably, like, I bet what we saw in the Oval Office has happened probably 30 times.
Maturity can kick in, some pragmatism, because this war tonight, people will die in Ukraine. Tonight, people will die in this conflict. We're trying to bring an end to this conflict, which is unsustainable. It's an unsustainable, bloody war that has to come to an end. And right now, the only leader in the world that can even have a chance of bringing about an end to this is named President Donald Trump. And we need to give him the opportunity to try and do that. And when you see efforts to impede it, when you tell someone, don't say, let's not talk about these things, let's not go in this direction, because it makes it harder for us to engage.
So is he saying that they tried to tell Zelensky, I think he's implying, right, that like they tried to tell Zelensky ahead of time, let's not escalate things and let's just get this done. Who knows whether that's true or not, but it seems like that's what he's implying.
Insist on doing it anyways, you start to wonder. I don't like to impugn people's motives, but you start to wonder what's behind it. So look, again, let's hope that this...
And to be fair, right, if they did tell him that, and then he did go off script intentionally, would you be pissed? If I were them, I would be pissed. Because now you're basically farming, right? You're like... I really hate to use this term because I feel like it's so diminutive, but it's like you're basically clip farming, right? You're looking for a soundbite or something to say the right thing that like the media will see and see that you're the right person. They're intentionally throwing oil on the fire. Yeah, basically. I mean, clip farming is like a massive under exaggeration, but I hope you guys can understand the essence of what I'm trying to get at here.
But I'm not sure after today.
You don't believe that this can be, you're not sure that this can be salvaged? I mean, can this relationship between Zelensky and Trump be repaired in your view?
I think anything is possible, but it has to go back to the point that President...
Sure, it can be. Absolutely, it can be. This is not a big deal. Like, I don't know. I like, as I said, it was like the Train and Mitch thing earlier. Like, easy. It's not a big deal.
President Trump is interested in being involved in this for the purposes of bringing about an enduring and lasting peace. That's what he wants to achieve. And I think if I'm a country, okay, that's involved in a war with a bigger country, who's losing thousands of people, who's had 3 million people leave my country because they can't be there, who is facing these challenges, I would be thanking a president who's trying to help bring about an end to this war. I would be thanking him, and I would be supportive of what he's trying to do, at least in my public pronouncements and in my public posture. And we didn't see that today, and we haven't seen that for the last few days. Now, will that change? I hope so. It should, for the purposes of global peace and stability in Europe and around the world.
Do you think you can make the argument that he hasn't said thank you?
Well, I think the vice president said he hadn't said it today. He hadn't heard it today in that meeting. And we were hoping that meeting would begin by thank you for everything you've done for us. We wouldn't be where we are today without you. We wouldn't even have a chance.
This is a pointless, this, in my opinion, this is all politics and like posturing. This entire point about saying thank you is just, I think it's stupid and patronizing to Zelensky. That's my opinion. It's stupid and patronizing.
to negotiate a peace
It's
without the help
counterproductive.
you gave us. By the way, without the help you gave us when you were president in the first term, because President Obama refused to provide them defensive capabilities in terms of military hardware. He did provide them blankets.
Yeah, and
he
that
did
was
provide
brought
them
up today
humanitarian
during that
aid.
meeting.
And it was brought up, but I was there. In fact,
By the way, I also want to say real quick, I think two things are true. And again, there's a lot. I feel like it might be confusing for some people to watch this because, like, I'm kind of arguing on both sides. I think Zelensky should have opened with a thank you. I think he should have, but I think calling it out was patronizing and counterproductive. Like, I think both things were true. He did. Yeah. And so there's the thing. And, like, that's the interesting thing is that people said that he did. I didn't see the beginning of that. Can somebody, for those of you guys that are saying that he did, can you find a clip of that so I can see it and my mods can show it to me? Because, like, I wasn't able to watch the entire thing. There were no videos of it. Because I didn't see that at all. So if you can link it to my mod, that would be really helpful. And I can pull it up and I'll watch it right now because I didn't see that.
Recall at the time Vice President Biden saying to me in a meeting that we had at the Vice President's residence that the reason why we didn't want to provide them those weapons is because they might use them. That was his exact quote. And that was the attitude. I remember clearly then the Ukrainian leaders saying, we don't need more blankets or MREs. We need weapons to defend ourselves. And they didn't do it. President Trump did. He provided them weaponry, some of it, much of it, which was used at the beginning of this war. And without those weapons being in their stocks, this war could have been over very quickly, 2, 3, 4 days. Another pot shot that Zelensky took today, when the president pointed that out, you know what Zelensky said? He said, yeah, we've heard that from the Russians. That's not a Russian narrative. That was the official position. Okay, of the United States. I vividly recall being briefed by leaders in the Biden administration telling us that this war was going to be over in 5 to 6 days. They believed that. That was their assessment at the time.
Yeah, I know what he's talking about. I was trying to remember. Yeah, and also, by the way, I thought that too. And am I the only one? Because if you go back to, like, whenever this first happened, like, I didn't cover it really hard because I think, again, Elden Ring came out on the same day. So I was focusing more on that. But even then, like, I did talk about it a little bit, and I thought Russia was going to just roll them the fuck over. And so I could see how, like, yeah, Trump would be pissed off if you try to act like Trump's repeating Russian propaganda. Because, like, that's what I thought, too. And, like, there's no Russian propaganda here. I just thought that was it.
And it wasn't the case because of the weapons that Ukraine had in its stocks because of President Trump in his first term. So he should have been grateful for that and grateful for what we're doing now. And one more point. It's not just President Trump. There's news reports out there. From NBC News, at least, is one of the...
I want to just take a second here. One of my mods got me a link to the clip of him saying thank you. I want to watch it real quick, okay?
An honor to have you, and please, I'd like to say something.
No, thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you for invitation. And
an honor to have you.
I think that, okay, so this is like a really, really stupid fine point, is that he said thank you for having me, but not thank you for the help. That's probably what J.D. Vance meant. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah. So it's like, it's a yes and no. And it also did, like, that clip ended right then, so he could have said more. Maybe we could get a better clip. Give me 1 second. Yeah. He still thanked them. This is the lamest thing ever. Yeah. But, like, you can see, like, I think, again, it's such a stupid issue. Am I crazy for thinking that this is, like, such a stupid issue to, like, what are we even doing talking about this? It's so stupid. Let's move on.
Place I recall reporting that Biden had a shouting match with Zelensky for not being grateful and not being thankful for everything that was provided back in 2022. Now, that didn't happen in front of the press. That was leaked, but it got out there. These frustrations are not unique to President Trump. There was those frustrations in the previous administration, if NBC News is to be believed.
Right. But obviously we've never seen anything like what we saw today. But the point that Zelensky was making there is that everyone predicted his demise, and Ukraine was able to fight and to survive. Zelensky was able to survive. The Ukrainian people have been fighting for 3 years. You yourself have said previously that the United States should assist Ukraine as long as the Ukrainians are willing to fight. So I think the question coming out of that meeting is what happens next year? I mean, you are the U.S. chief diplomat. Is there a path for diplomacy? Is a ceasefire still a possibility tonight?
Well, number one, you know who else said that Ukraine is very brave and very valiant? President Trump. He said it today. He said it repeatedly. Your soldiers have been very brave. Your fighters have been very brave. Your people have been very brave. He said that repeatedly. Yeah. And everyone recognizes that. But we're 3 years into a war that has no end in sight and no exit strategy. The EU doesn't have an exit strategy. I saw the comments tonight from the leader of the EU saying there needs a new leader of the free world. I mean, these people are just playing silly games and saying these things. What is their exit strategy? What is anybody else's exit strategy? The only person on the planet who is actively trying to bring an end to this conflict is named Donald Trump, the President of the United States. He's the only one that's trying to do it, and we should be helping him to achieve it. And so do I think it's possible? Yeah, I hope it's possible, because that's what we do try to do at the Department of State, is we try to bring end to conflicts, not start new ones, and certainly not extend them.
Senator Lindsey Graham, after having lunch with President Trump today, said Zelensky either needs to resign or they need to send someone over that we can do business with. Do you feel that President Zelensky needs to resign?
Well, that's Lindsey's feeling, because he feels very passionately. You know, he's been a very strong supporter of Ukraine. Lindsey Graham has been one of the strongest voices for Ukraine. Well, the United States, the president's taken no position on that. What he said today is let him come back when he's ready to do peace. That's what he said. Let him come back when he's ready to do peace. So I can't speak for what anybody else said. I can only go off the words from the president of the United States, and that is today this is not going to be productive any further. When Zelensky's ready to make peace and he's serious about peace, let him come back then. And that's when we'll re-engage with them. And what he means by that is when he understands. And how will you measure that? Well, I think it's everything I've said already. And that is, how are you going to get Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation to a table to discuss even the opportunity, even to explore whether there's an opportunity for peace? You're not going to do it by calling them names. It makes everybody feel very good. You can pass resolutions. You can put out very strongly worded statements. Senators can do it. I did when I was in the Senate. House.
Yeah, he means capitulation. That's exactly what he means. And somebody did link me this. Attili linked me this.
Good morning.
Thank you so much.
So big team.
Important visit to the United States and Washington. Met with a bipartisan delegation to the U.S. Senate. Discussions focused on continued military assistance for Ukraine, relevant legislative initiatives. We've taken pride in strategic partners, and we're grateful for the unwavering bicameral and bipartisan support for Ukraine.
Oh, it's very good to see you. How are you? Hi. Hello. You got a new? Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Happy to see you. We know each other. It's not the first meeting, and I'm very proud that Ukraine has such big strategic, even not only partner, friend like the United States. So we are very thankful for this.
We're here today as a show of support. We have committee chairs. We have.
Again, I just think the entire thankful thing is total fucking, like, complete fucking red herring. Total fucking red herring. Entirely fucking irrelevant. Like, it was just a complete waste of time. So
can do it, commentators can do it, and countries that have no real skin in the game can do it. But when you are the president of the United States of America and you're trying to bring about peace the way Donald Trump is trying to bring about peace, the only way to do it is you have to create space for people to come to the table and talk. And that is something we should all be applauding, not criticizing, and not pretending that we can just extend this war forever until and that everybody has unlimited resources to continue to fund it on both sides, by the way.
And President Zelensky has said he does want this war to end. He just cares about how it ends. We heard that from the other European leaders who came to the Oval Office also this week. Course. President Trump said to me today, before that shouting match erupted in the Oval Office, that he doesn't believe there have to be security guarantees in place before the ceasefire, that you can come to a ceasefire agreement and then put those in place. Do you agree with that?
That's not what he said. What he said is, why am I going to be talking about security guarantees? Let me get a peace deal first, is what he said. That doesn't mean they can't happen as part of that negotiation, but you have to have an agreement. What peace is there to secure if you first don't have an agreement on peace? Like, what do the Russians need in order to end this conflict? What
so you're saying it would happen as part of the negotiations?
Well, again, how do you end a war? You have to find out what the combatants require in order to stop shooting at each other. What are the Russians' needs?
Yeah.
What do they need to see in order for them to stop fighting? What do the Ukrainians need in order to stop fighting? And then once you have that in place, then you can decide the next step, which is, and what do we need to do to make sure this never happens again? That it doesn't happen in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I don't think President Trump is interested
Surely
in a
it won't happen
one-year
again.
ceasefire. I don't think he's interested in a
Surely.
6-month ceasefire. He wants this thing to end. He has said that repeatedly. But again, he's not going to use the kind of language that maybe plays well in the public sphere or in the political sphere for people that want to take shots at him, but it's not going to allow us to have a negotiation or even to explore a potential negotiation. President Donald Trump is a man who's made deals his entire life in business, and he's bringing those principles to government, and he's the only one in the world that has any chance. If Donald Trump tomorrow decides, I don't care about Ukraine, I don't care about Russia, and I don't care about this war, and he walks away, I ask you, I ask everyone, well, who on this planet has any chance whatsoever, even a 1% chance of getting the combatants to the table? The answer is there is no one. He is the only one on earth right now that has any chance. If there is a chance of peace, he's the only one that has a chance to deliver on it.
China, maybe? I don't know.
Do you still see a meeting happening with President Putin there, President Zelensky, and President Trump? Is that still possible?
Well, I think that's premature. I mean, what would they? You first need to make sure that this is even a possibility, and you have to explore it. And look, there's good signs, I think, maybe, somewhat about at least the Russians' willingness to engage. And but we have to explore all that. But that's not going to be done in front of cameras. It's not going to be done in an open ballroom. There's a lot of work to be done before we get to this point. This is a complex war that has causes behind it that go back a number of years. There's a lot to navigate. A lot has been invested on both sides. Gains have been made by the Russian Federation in some places. All of these things have to be worked through, but it's not going to be done through press conferences and in the media. It has to be done through what the vice president said today, the serious work of diplomacy. It's a lot easier to just say, well, we're with Ukraine all the way, no matter what, however long it takes. Well, 15 years,
Yeah.
12 years? I mean, that's absurd. That's not sustainable, and everybody knows it. The president.
I think also, like, what he's saying here is something that a lot of Americans feel. Especially after, like, what happened in the Middle East and, like, us being entangled there for 20 years. I think that there's a very, very big worry that if we don't end this and get out of it, it's just going to continue going on indefinitely. And I feel like a lot of, like, again, this is like, these are people, like, it's like that guy, right? The guy was like mainly joking around, fucking around about how, like, I don't care about Russia, Ukraine, or whatever. But, like, that essence is accurate. I think that's the way that a lot of people feel, is that they don't give a fuck about any of these countries because they can't afford food. They can't afford rent, right? And so when they see that we are signing up, we're basically writing a blank check to a foreign country to help them fight off Russia, this is going to rub a lot of Americans the wrong way, because Americans want the American government to operate in their best interest. And I understand that you can maybe make an argument that, like, foreign, diplomacy and foreign intervention has, like, a long-term positive impact, but that argument doesn't work on a person who can't afford their rent. It just simply does not work on them. And so that's the big problem, and I think that's the reason why, like, that's the reason why they're pushing back on it so much. Americans voted for the president, and the president made deals. How are you just running? Now you're just running from it? Well, I don't know, right? I have no idea. Politics comes second to food insecurity? Yeah. And so absolute facts? Yeah. We'd rather send billions, skill people overseas, yet our veterans rot and die in the streets fighting for scraps. I mean, like, in some cases, I think that is the way that a lot of people feel. That is. So you need more money to lower the rent? Yeah, I think the idea is that the amount of money, like, so basically the military grade weapons and everything that were sent over to Ukraine, these were things that probably were paid for indirectly by American tax dollars. And so, yeah, people want those American tax dollars to go towards something else. And so is it really that crazy to imagine that people think that? Directly? In some cases, it is directly. I was just trying to be diplomatic about this.
wants to end this war. He wants to explore whether there's a possibility to do it and do it quickly. He campaigned on it. It was a promise of his, and he intends to when he says these things, he doesn't just say them, he means them. And he's doing it. And it's the first time we've seen that in a long time in American politics.
Secretary Marco Rubio, thank you for your time tonight and joining us on such a historic day. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Rubio gave a great interview here. I'm going to be honest. I think he really cooked. He brought up a number of good points, and there's the video right there. And I wanted to watch it and kind of bring it up. Now, as I said, I'm a pretty big supporter of Ukraine. I have been for a while, and I think that Zelensky's concerns are very legitimate. But I think this is a situation where there is no moral good answer. There is no moral good solution. There are just different shades of gray. And I think that, like pushing for a moral good solution in the public's eye could have probably rubbed Trump and Vance the wrong way. And it seems like obviously they're having, a breakdown in communication between what's being discussed privately and then what's being displayed to the media. And I think that that's really why things blew up so much yesterday. That's really where I think things are coming out of. And I see in our DMZ in the future, Ukrainian here, 3 years of complete corruption. Around 93 of those arrested were released on bail and then left the country, men being kidnapped. I don't know anything about that. I cannot even begin to even think about it. Yeah, I have no idea. So yeah, seriously though, the USA is not top 5 GDP to give Ukraine compared to EU countries. Do you think US tax money is going to Ukraine? Well, it's undeniable that US tax money is going towards Ukraine. It's undeniable. Of course it is. Absolutely it is. What do you mean? Yes, like obviously. Now you're saying that there's not a lot going to Ukraine. Okay, fine. That's okay. But you're still not going to find people that are going to be happy about that, right? I don't know. I don't really see, again, dude, you don't know so much about it. Why are you so pro-Ukraine? Because I think that Russia is the aggressor. I think that they are an existential threat. And I think that them attacking Ukraine like that after them annexing Crimea and breaking multiple deals is a pattern of behavior that's negative. And I think also the Russian government and Putin is completely corrupt. That's the reason why. I think that they're bad actors. It's really that simple. I mean, I don't know, like, that's, and I'm not saying that, like, Ukraine is perfect, right? I've heard that Ukraine has corruption problems, same as we do and other countries do. Maybe even worse than ours, right? I mean, I have no idea. But I'm saying that that's my opinion with Russia.